Welcome to In the Paint Shop. Today we're going to be taking on a pretty basic paint repair, fixing this solid white colored vehicle. We're going to be putting a couple new parts on it and blending color into the front door. This is what it's going to look like when we're done. I'm going to do my best to show you the process involved with getting it to this point and explain what I'm doing along the way. The first step with any paint project, once we get it prepped and in the booth, is to make sure we have a clean surface to start with. If you're not starting with a clean surface, you're going to end up with issues like fish eyes or even delamination problems down the road. So it's vitally important you get a surface clean before you start. Most paint lines have several different degreasers available depending on your situation. These can be solvent-based degreasers, water-based degreasers, and even special degreasers made for plastic parts that aren't coated to begin with, or just raw plastic. Due to local regulations, you might actually even be limited on the types of degreasers you have to use. So you just got to kind of use what you have available to the best of your ability. Sometimes you're even using several different types of degreaser on the same car to get the job done. The biggest secret to turning out a clean paint job is to do everything you can along the way to eliminate dirt. Even though we used lint-free rags to degrease the car, they'll still leave a little bit of lint behind. That's why I like to use a little bit of compressed air to blow it off after degreasing to eliminate as much of that as I can. Next, we're going to use a tack rag. And the tack rag will actually loosen up a lot of little pieces of dirt that are stuck down that the compressed air didn't get off. After using a tack rag, I like to blow the surfaces off again to make sure there's no lint left from the tack rag and to remove any dust that the tack rag loosened up. The first product we're going to spray is a primer sealer, or sometimes just called sealer. The reason we use a primer sealer is, number one, it's going to seal down all the pre-existing finishes. Number two, it's going to help by getting the product closer to the final color so we don't have to use as much base coat. And a lot of times the base coat is the most expensive material we're going to spray. And the third big reason we're using it is to help with adhesion. It's going to stick a little bit better than the base coats alone would. Primer sealers typically go on what's called a wet on wet application. What that means is once it flashes off, it's good to go with the next coat of base coat. We don't have to sand it or scuff it after this. Our sealer's flashed off to the point that it has a nice dull finish to it, so we're ready to start applying the base coat. This first coat of base coat's going to go on nice and wet. We don't have to worry about metallic orientation with a solid color, so we're basically just going for coverage at this point. The base coat I'm using is a PPG EnviroBase, which is a waterborne base coat. If you've never used a waterborne base coat, they're a little bit different in the application than solvent-based, but honestly, if you can shoot solvent-based, you should be able to do waterborne too. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but not too bad. It has some advantages over solvent-based and some disadvantages depending on the situation. Our first coat of base is dry to the touch, so we are ready to apply our second coat. This is going to go on very similar to the first coat, just not quite as wet when it's all said and done. Be sure you're getting all your edges, especially on parts like bumpers. They're real easy to miss, and they look terrible if you forget them once the car's built. Again, our previous coat of base is dry to the touch, so we're ready to apply our third and final coat of base to this color. Again, it's a solid white, so we don't have to worry about any metallics or pearls that we have to get correct. So we can just put on a coat of paint. Again, it's going to be a little bit drier coat than the previous one. I'd call it about a 50% coat. And what I mean by that is if you have a coat of paint that is totally wet, no dry spots, we call that 100% wet. So this is going to be about 50% of that, or a 50% coat. Don't forget to keep blending out the color on our blend panel. You don't want to stop suddenly with it. You want to kind of roll the wrist and flip the color out into that panel. Our base coat is dry, getting ready for clear coat now. We want to go ahead and tack everything off and get it clean and ready for the clear, paying a little bit of extra attention on our blend panel to make sure there's no dry overspray left from the blending process. Go ahead and blow it off after that to make sure you didn't leave any lint. Clear coat always seems to be the part of the process that people like to watch. I guess it's finally where you get to see what it looks like as a finished product. It can also be pretty stressful for people that are just getting into automotive repair. One reason for that is once you start, you really can't stop and fix much in the way of mistakes. You just got to kind of keep rolling and hope for the best. With a little bit of time and practice, clear coating gets to where it's really not that stressful. It's actually kind of an enjoyable part of the paint job, and it means you're almost done. It's time for our second and final coat of clear on this job. You want to take a little bit of time and make sure you're getting all the little crevices and edges, especially on a part like bumpers. This stuff goes on the way you want your finished product to look. So it's not going to change much. It's not going to orange peel up or On this last coat of clear, you want to look over each part before you move on. It's real easy at this point to add a little bit more clear to a little spot that you might have not got quite as wet as you'd like. So look it over real quick, touch up any spots that you need to, and then move on. Not quite enough clear left to finish the second coat on the door, so I'll have to stop and mix a little bit more to finish. But this is a great way to try to avoid waste, especially if you're doing a bunch of individual parts like this car. You can intentionally try to mix a little bit light so that you can go back out and finish up just a little bit more clear to get the job done, as opposed to throwing away a bunch of extra. It's not really an option if you're doing a big complete overhaul or something. You just kind of have to intentionally mix a little bit too much then, so you don't run out with a door left to paint. So this is our final product. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know by giving it a like. If you'd like to learn more about automotive painting, please follow the page. My intention is to get into more and more difficult paint jobs, do some troubleshooting on common problems you might run into. We'll go over equipment setup and maintenance, and just try to give you a good foundation on automotive refinish repair. Thank you for watching, and hope to have you back again.